r/AskReddit. What's your prediction for the Area 51 raid? They changed the address on Google the night before, so we all turn up at the wrong place. The army will be forced to set out an aid station with water and sunscreen, because, of course, no one brought nearly enough. That would make this raid better than TanaCon at least. 50 pissed Nevadan National Guard medics hand out sunscreen to idiots. A dozen people show up, stare awkwardly at one another in the middle of the desert without speaking for several minutes. They sit, hope more show up. One checks Pokemon Go. Eventually, they gain enough confidence to break the ice. They go back home and create some dope memes for the rest of us that were just playing along with the joke. Plot twist. You can catch LGM, Beheim in the desert around Area 51 if you can get cell service. 97% of the folks who've said they were going won't attend. The remaining 3% will cancel due to lack of numbers. Do people really not realize the event page is a joke made by a meme page? 3% is still 12,000+ people. As one of the 4 people that showed up to the Naruto run in a Category 5 hurricane event, you're vastly overestimating how many people will go. 10 people actually show up and they are told to go away. They go away, the end. But not before we are tormented for the next few months with Area 51 memes. Edit, here to admit I was wrong, LOL. I doubt Area 51 memes will actually live as long as a few months. I predict that they'll die on Reddit within several days, live on in other social media for a little while, and then die. However, a brief revival of the meme will occur in the days leading up to and after September 20th. 23 people will show up and stand here, discussing about how the others betrayed them. Some soldiers on a jeep will come and tell them to move. End of story. 20 of those people don't actually plan on raiding, they just want to see what happens. You know what would be funny? They just let them in. They walk around. They see a few hangars with some cool looking planes and helicopters. The employees show them the runways and tell them, this is where we race cars after work. Loser has to buy beer. They give them a bus ride back to their cars. Bingo. Mill gets transparency points, completely baffles other countries, catalog everyone's data who attended. They get escorted to the base movie theater, get a briefing from a major who thinks he's God's gift to PowerPoint, followed by a few key caveats from the sergeant major. Within the hour everyone is bored to tears, they get lunch at the AAFES food court, and cattle cars back up the main gate. Once they get back to cell service, cue a few of the saddest selfies ever taken with mocha lattes in hand in front of Green Bean. We piss off the aliens and they take over the Earth. I suspect that few people will actually show up for the raid. That being said, I would not be surprised if the government prepared for it nonetheless, and that the cost of such preparations would not be trivial. I would imagine that the government will bring in enough security and equipment to block access to the base by a large crowd, with an emphasis on avoiding anyone being injured. Along with that, they will probably also set up medical services to provide aid as needed. All of this will cost money, of course, but I don't think that the government would want to be entirely unprepared for the event. So imagine this: a handful of protesters show up to the event and find themselves there with a mass of military security and possibly civilian law enforcement personnel, along with a complement of ambulances, paramedics, and EMTs. They would most likely monitor traffic in the area to see if thousands of people are gonna filter in before going all out. That amount would be noticeable in traffic patterns, and would take time, but yes, they would have a plan to handle it. If anything, they would escalate to match the crowd. We're coming to see the aliens, government. You can't hide from us any longer. And just to make sure you can't do anything tricky, we're giving you 3 months advance notice. A boring event that in 10 years will be spun into a Hollywood action film that makes millions. News talking heads: although a plan was made to storm Area 51 on social media, government officials were able to confirm the raid did not take place and Area 51 was not breached. Local blurbs around the country, insert name, S family is seeking answers after, name, disappeared after making plans to visit Area 51. Alternatively, they all get flashy thinged and don't remember being there. You know what the difference between you and me is? I make raiding Area 51 look good. Let's just say a few thousand idiots manage to show up and think they can pull it off. Best case scenario. They make a run for the fence line. The base responds with an acoustic non-lethal device. Roughly 1/3 of the group goes down, clutching their ears. Many more go down as they get closer, determined to make the fence but ultimately failing. So maybe low four-figure number actually make it within a few hundred yards of the fence line, in a significantly degraded state from a single non-lethal device. Cue the riot agents. A volley of tear gas canisters turns the last 5 football fields of distance to the fence line into a densely fogged snot fest. Another 50 to 60% become combat ineffective. Between the ringing in their ears, their inability to breathe, and the inability to see through the fog of gas, most of the group is unwilling or unable to proceed. A small number of intrepid individuals make it within 100 yards of the fence line. The searchlights come on. Between the fog, the tears, and millions of lumens of light in their face, they can't see what the hell is going on. They shout directions at one another, but now they're only a few hundred yards from the acoustic devices, and nobody can hear shit. Except for the first salvo of warning shots from a 50 calories HMG mounted to a Humvee nearby. Most of them scatter. A couple of brave souls aren't intimidated by the warning shots. By sheer dumb luck, they get to the fence line and pull out the wire cutters. One shouts, "We did it, Reddit," just before being turned into a fine pink mist by the 50s. On the base side, most of the 20 people required to actually repel this attack go back to the cafeteria laughing about it. The .50 gunner gets sent home, then to critical incident counseling. The other hundreds of guys who were on call up bitch that the morons didn't even break through the fence and trigger a real response, and that they wasted their night for nothing. Worst case scenario. Some idiot, or group of idiots in the crowd produces a firearm, and they manage to put effective fire on some of the guards. The guards respond in accordance with the row issued to them, defend the facility with reasonable force, up to and including deadly force if required. Simultaneously, several Humvees open up with .50 cal and 7.62 mm machine gun fire. Along with whoever produced a firearm, hundreds of people who thought they were badass a few minutes ago are now casualties, lying on the ground wailing. Most people scatter, but more gunshots are heard from the crowd, each met with a burst of HMG fire in return, resulting in another pile of bodies. The sun rises on a battlefield that looks like a Game of Thrones scene. There are a few dead idiots with guns, and a lot of dead unarmed people who just got too close to the real idiots. Some people live streamed the whole thing, their phones still broadcasting from their lifeless hands. A mass genocide, and then a Reddit post about where all the comments are simply F. Holy crap, that second half is painfully real. I wonder how long we could get an F chain to be. You remember that one thread that went through like 10 pages of view the rest of the comments, because people were trying to keep the thread from getting locked? Won't happen, mostly because the people committing to do it probably forgot it involves going outside. In the desert. In the middle of summer. Also, they probably don't have a good address for their GPS and there's no paved or covered parking. Hey BMW, take me to Area 51. This thing got way more attention than it should have. Funny Facebook event post that was about Naruto running ending up on news articles LOL. Nothing will happen, a few losers will turn up convince us this is the big moment and then it won't be. It will get a 30-second mention on local news. I think even that is generous. I can't believe anyone is taking a random sarcastic meme seriously. My prediction is that nobody is going to show up. I doubt even a handful of the people who signed up did it as anything more than a joke. I think as the date approaches a bunch of news stations will run hyped up reports to get ratings from old people. Aliens will disintegrate everyone and begin their global takeover early. This is when we find out all world leaders are actually aliens in disguise. But the invasion will be put down when Vladimir Putin, who killed the alien that tried to mimic him, rides in on a white flying unicorn, naked from the waist up, shooting the power of the sun at the invading aliens and burns them all to ashes. Well, that's it, we're done here, boys.